more rewards, more savings. With American Express Business Gold, earn up to $395 back in annual statement credits on eligible purchases at select shipping, food delivery, and retail subscription merchants. Enjoy the benefits of membership with the Amex Business Gold Card. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-gold. Amex Business Gold Card. Built for business by American Express.
Imagine what's possible when learning doesn't get in the way of life. At Capella University, our game-changing FlexPath learning format lets you set your own deadlines so you can learn at a time and pace that works for you. It's an education you can tailor to your schedule. That means you don't have to put your life on hold to pursue your professional goals. Instead, enjoy learning your way and earn your degree without missing a beat. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu.
This episode is brought to you by Walmart. New beauty is in bloom at Walmart, and it's all about springtime radiance. From Drybar, Tula Skincare, and hundreds more available online. Walmart has the premium brands you want and this season's on-trend products for flawless, glossy hair and hydrated skin. Big name beauty brands? Check. The things you love? Check. Find trending spring beauty and all you need to look and feel gorgeous at Walmart, on app and online.
You're listening to the Animation Addicts Podcast, episode 334, Lady and the Tramp, Uncanny K9s. Welcome to the Animation Addicts Podcast with the Rotoscopers, the #1 place to get your animation fix with animation addicts just like you. Each episode, we dive into the wonderful world of animation featuring Disney, DreamWorks, Pixar, and everything in between. From hilarious discussions and movie reviews to interviews with industry insiders, this show's mission is to brighten your day through our love of animation. So hop on your nerdy couch, grab some snacks, and get ready to hang out with your animation besties because it's time to dive into today's episode. Hey there, animation addicts. I'm Morgan Stradling.
And I'm Chelsea Robson.
Chelsea, if you could have one of the two of these superpowers, if you will, from Lady and the Tramp, would you rather have Tramp's street smarts or Lady's charm?
That is a good question. I think that either one makes life a little easier. So I think it's a kind of a luck of the draw. And, but I think I'd still rather go for the charm because I think that makes it just that much easier.
Nice. Yes. The social prowess, eh? Street smarts are a really, really great skill to have in life. Just the street rat, not that to be street smart, you have to be a street rat. But whenever I think of that, I think of Aladdin. So immediately comes to mind. But yeah, being able to just navigate the world that way and just be really slick and sly and it can come in handy for sure. Definitely as a dog.
Definitely as a dog.
We are not doing another dog series. We're calling it our Disney Plus series, where we are going to be reviewing films that were released exclusively on Disney Plus over the past few years. And we will be starting this off with Disney's Lady and the Tramp from 2019. This is going to be a struggle for me because majority of these are live action remakes, and I have very much a line in the sand that I drew that I was not going to support these or watch these.
And you have gone back on that.
Well, the fact that it's been 5 years, I mean, by November it'll be 6 years, but I think enough time has passed that whatever amount of money or stock value they were going to get from me watching this is long since passed.
You made your point.
So I think this will be fun because there's a whole bunch on here that were released exclusively that we can dive into. And live action remakes, I've purposely ignored them, but I think it's time, that we tackle them, and so I can have more of an informed opinion. And oh boy, do I have an informed opinion on this one now that I've seen it.
Let's roll right in.
This episode is brought to you by Audi. The road is calling. Embrace the thrill of the drive with the all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron. Featuring effortless power, serious acceleration, and advanced Audi tech. It's not just a new EV. It's a new way to experience driving. The all-new fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron is here. The next chapter of Audi starts now.
Here at the Almond Joy Factory, where tropical vibes abound, we use soft, fresh-tasting coconut.
The crunchiest almonds and delicious chocolate candy.
Ah, but do you know what our most important ingredient is? Sometimes you feel like a nut.
Sometimes you don't.
Almond Joy's got nuts and something even way better than that. Yes, Almond Joy is made with almonds and joy.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
All right, so some basic information about The Lady and the Tramp before we get started. The release date, November 12th, 2019. This was one of the flagship initial movies that was released for Disney Plus on opening day on the opening of the service. We'll talk about that. The production studio, Walt Disney Pictures and TaylorMade. Distributor, Walt Disney Studios Motion Picture. The director was Charlie Bean. Now, you're like, who's that? Well, this was his second directorial debut. His first one was the Lego Ninjago movie, and he's known as an American filmmaker, animator, storyboard artist, and voice actor. So did a lot of things in animation and whatnot, and did some voice acting, and very much involved in the animation process and filmmaking process, and then was brought on to adapt this. Budget, don't know, and box office, don't know.
Back on Charlie Bean, I was perusing the internets, and there is a very interesting, about an hour-long interview that the university, or Utah Valley University did, their animation department did, or maybe it's just film school, did with him over a Zoom when it came out. And it was very interesting to hear it from his perspective. Well, to hear specifically on how all of the everything that a film student would ask kind of questions. So that's a plug. We'll put those in the show notes as well. You should check out with this.
Yeah. So, it's interesting. Immediately first thoughts is that this very much feels like a made for TV movie. And something that we haven't really talked about is this weird transition from the Disney Channel, which was this flagship brand for 30 plus years, where they made movies that were these big events, these tentpole films that were released, as the Disney Channel original movie. And then as streaming came along, they really started to stop those and move anything that maybe normally would fall under the Disney Channel original movie banner. Wasn't quite ready for prime time as far as being released theatrically, and they moved that all to Disney Plus. Like, I can't really even think of any sort of Disney Channel original movie in the past 5 years. I'm sure there has been some, but they're not. We don't think of it because they've really shifted away from their bread and butter model. One of their bread and butter models, which was the cable channel, which made a lot of money because of the advertising backbone that it had.
Well, there is a little bit of a confusion with this too, because some of the production money has actually been shifted back to the Disney Channel because they wanted to make it look like Disney Plus wasn't losing as much money as it was.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's kind of debatable as far as what was technically a Disney Channel original at this point. So it's kind of going back and forth.
This
supposed to be for streaming first?
This was announced in 2018.
This was, yes, but
yes.
As in the last 2 years.
Oh, yeah. Say. Yes. There's been a very concerted effort to we have to show investors that this is successful. It's making money. How do we do that? Let's turn the Moana 2 or the Moana TV series. Let's turn that theatrically. We'll take that off the books. Let's take this off the books and put it over here. So yeah, as Disney Plus just has not really been financially viable for Disney, they've shifted things. But this one I think was always meant to be, because even in the early press releases, as I was looking up on this, summer 2018 is when they announced it, and then they announced the people that are involved, and then it was coming out a year later, and then they announced, it's going to be on Disney Plus. So it was always sort of the plan.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was just something to say, hey, this is something new. This is something original. It's not just the vault that has all of our old stuff. There's new exciting things here too.
Yeah, and that was in that interview. He did mention that the hardest part of the process was the fact that they did have a hard deadline because even though it wasn't theatrical, it still had to have almost a theatrical release schedule because it was part of the reason why somebody would want to sign up right away because, oh no, I don't want to miss out on the live action Lady and the Tramp. So,
which at this point, live action remakes, I think there was a little bit of tedium. Is that a word? It was tedious at this point. Meaning, I mean,
it was still novel, I think, at that point. I remember it being slightly novel.
Okay. For me, being a rare beauty, if you will, a rare flower in the desert, it worn off for me because I didn't even go to see The Lion King. And that went on to be the highest grossing animated film up until that point. So you're right. I stand corrected. This was still very much novel. But for me, it was wearing off. And so, hey, there's another live action remake. I don't think even Dumbo was released at this point. That was maybe a year or two later. But yeah, it was still something like, oh, cool. I love Lady and the Tramp. Let's go check it out.
Right.
So check it out, we shall. The very first thing that caught me off guard a little bit is the very beginning when they have the Disney logo. There was this jazz music. I'm like, what's this live action Princess and the Frog? What's going on here? And are we changing? Immediately I thought, okay, with jazz, are we changing location? And we did. And they didn't necessarily make it explicit, but apparently this was filmed in Savannah, Georgia. And so they made this conscious effort to switch it to a more southern, but at the same time, based on the architecture, I mean, I wanted to do research. I wanted to look up 1920s Savannah versus 1920s, Northeast to see the architecture differences, to see, okay, can you really just like switch it like that? Because if you wouldn't have known, like the jazz music aside, it would have felt like wherever the setting was in the original with snow. And, that's the thing, is snowed, which isn't an Atlanta thing. So that's why it's like, we're going to film it here. I mean, they get a lot of perks in Savannah.
Right.
So I don't know if these were actual sets or neighborhoods that were historical that they filmed it in, or if it was more of a soundstage sort of thing, because Georgia does have a lot of tax breaks. So I'd be surprised with either. Or I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, either I'd be like, okay, yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, those homes looked pretty legitimate to the area. As far, because they do still have quite a bit of that flair of that time period that
which are just
still
simply
there.
Gorgeous. It's like, wow, can we just go back to building homes like that? I just was drooling at those big porches and all the ornamentation.
Porch.
Yes.
The reason they don't build them today is two reasons. One, air conditioning. We have it. So people don't have to go out on their porch, don't have to. And how they would get air conditioning at the time is they would wet sheets. They would take wet sheets and they would hang them up on the porch, and then they would let the wind go through it, and that would be their homemade air conditioning. And so was very utilitarian in that way, but also it was very nice, and it was lovely to have, be able to sit out front porch, sitting and rocking and all these things. And also the second reason is today, the porch is not included in modern day square footage, which means that house builders, they are not able to raise the listing price to accommodate and to actually make the money back on the extra materials used for that giant wraparound porch. So they don't do it, which is just so sad. So sad. Like, so many things. Beauty has been just completely forgotten about with modern building, and it makes me sad. But here we are. We can be a different generation. I'm just saying, we can do this together. Let's demand it.
So I actually looked this up, and the movie, while filmed in Savannah, Georgia, was actually set in New Orleans, which modern Disney has this obsession with New Orleans, that they are just trying to make New Orleans a thing. They really want to tie it in to the Disney parks. I don't know, but it's like everything is like, how can we take over this city and culture and make it part of Disney, which is interesting. But there are real locations that were listed, like the Georgia State Railroad Museum, Johnson Square, Wright Square, the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist, and some of the houses here. There's a little video of talking about like, hey, they used our house or they used this house, and of course, I have other filming details when I was looking this up. Says the movie has been criticized for an idealized version of the American South during Jim Crow era. Like,
well, duh.
Of course, like that's every criticism, like modern criticism of any time Disney tries to do something like this. Like Disney tried to like throw everyone a bone who would have had a problem with this. Like, look, 85% of the cast is black,
right?
And we're gonna film it here, and like we're totally changing the location and the people, and like, I mean, this is still the criticism that people have. It's like,
right.
You will never win. You will never win trying to appease this group that you can never make a movie about the Jim Crow era. You can even show it like as true to form. You'd be like, hey, this video that is actually someone's video, like before video cameras were invented, and I found it, and this is actual footage. Be like, this idolizes that.
The fact that this exists means that there was some kind of
like, but this is actual footage. I'm not idolizing anything. It's just how it was. Nope. It's idolized. Sorry.
Right.
Okay. You can't win. So, knowing all of this, interesting. I like the change. I thought it was fine. It was similar enough. And there was a lot of points of this movie where it's like not shot by shot, but definitely the opening scene with, parts of the opening scene with Lady going up the stairs and escaping, like felt very like we are going to recreate this iconic moment.
Yeah. And at the time, remember, this was a very normal thing, especially with, say, like Beauty and the Beast. Like, that's how they capitalized on it. We're going to do this exactly the same. Look how close we can get.
Which Beauty and the Beast did that quite, yes.
So it was a thing that they were trying to do. Like, okay, let's lean into that. They like it. Right? Yeah.
One thing I didn't like, and I noticed this almost immediately, was, okay, we're setting it in this time period based on the clothes, based on the locations and the homes and everything. Even though, I mean, it only been 30 seconds into the movie and a minute into the movie, the modern dialects. Oh, I'm like, what's going on here? I mean, they went to great lengths to show that it's this different era, but then they use these modern voices and accents. It's very anachronistic. Not a fan. A fan. That totally took me out of the movie immediately. Yeah, I don't know why we couldn't have just like put on a little, and there wasn't even any like southernness to the accent.
Yeah, there was
no
southern, no southern.
Like I was expecting a little of this,
and yeah,
which would have been, again, the whole time I'm thinking
it would have been appropriate.
I would have just preferred a live action Princess and the Frog movie, giving me all these elements, but not giving me the elements that I want.
Yeah.
So.
They did have a little bit of an animation, which they turned into and faded into like a drone footage that went straight into that Christmas morning moment.
Well, did they have Christmas lights in the 1920s? Did you notice that there were like Christmas lights on the house and the porch? And I'm like, what? That's why I was confused. I saw the Christmas lights and I thought, oh, like this is modern time. But then I saw what they were wearing. And I was like, oh, this is not. Or these people are just weirdos.
I was just assuming this was like some alternate universe. Like this is, I don't know. Like I tend to not have that high expectations for remakes like this, and so I'm just like, whatever. I'll take it however it is, all the same, whatever.
Well, so then they had the drone shot going through the window. What I felt like everything's like super quick with this movie. It's just like we're moving from the plot point to the plot point because we have to, and they have the classic. Oh, it's just they didn't do one of my favorite lines. Oh, Jim dear, it's the one I was admiring, isn't it? Trimmed with ribbons. Well, it has a ribbon. So I love that scene. I think it's awesome, and they pull out the hat box, and there is a cute little dog that just has a big old bow around her neck, and she's so cute. So cute. And I will say, I love this scene so much that we got a dog for Christmas this year, and I went to great lengths to find a big box like that. I had a whole bunch of them at Hobby Lobby, all along a wall.
Oh, nice.
They didn't have the pink. This one kind of has like pinkish colors, so I couldn't find a pink one, but they had a, very classic Christmas color, so I got that, and I put a big old ribbon around the dog's neck, And then Christmas morning, I put this by the tree very early on. Like, oh yeah, there's a big present in there. Don't touch it. And so the kids just thought there was a present. And then Christmas morning, we had the dog with us, Christmas Eve, picked her up from Chelsea, I might add.
Oh, yes, yes.
Amazing friend who watched the dog for a day during this weird transition period where we can't necessarily have her at our house.
So cute. I had her in my purse. She was so tiny, just this little puppy that's like, oh, so cute. And I took her to a thing I had an outing with my family. And so we were out and about, and we were standing in this big long line to like take pictures or something. And there were these little kids right next to me, and they're like, "What's in your bag?" And like the mom is like, "What are you showing them?" And I was like, "It's a puppy." And then it shifted from this like, "What are you crazy lady doing with my kids?" to, "Oh my gosh, that dog is so cute."
Oh. Yes, so we surprised the kids with a mini Aussie doodle, so half Australian Shepherd, half poodle, and her name is Darla, and she is black and white. She kind of looks like the border collies from Babe. She has that sort of look, and she is so sweet, and I love her so much. So we couldn't do Lady. I mean, we weren't really on board with Lady, so but with another cute name. Speaking of darling, Darla.
Oh, I love it.
And yes, the whining dog night one thing is a thing where you put them in their little spot and they
she was fine with me. I don't know what you were doing to it. What were you doing wrong? I don't know.
I don't know. You're the dog whisperer for sure.
I put her next to Montana the next morning, and Montana was just like, "No, I'm not dealing with this." And she's so much smaller than like any other dog that has been around Montana, because Montana's 70 pounds. Like, she's large. Yeah. And so it was just really funny, because she's like, I'm not dealing with this. The youths, I'm not dealing with this.
And so we kind of hop into things. I think they really kind of rush the moments of the beginning of the movie where we're seeing things from a dog perspective. And this is something that I think is it's either a Miyazaki thing or just a non-modern American studio thing where we're able to just enjoy the moment. There's not a lot of rushing that's happening. We're just, in the 1955 version, for the Sunday routine with the paper and the donut and her sitting there, and she's really just loving her life, just the three of them. And I felt like that was really missed in this one. I didn't really get a sense for Lady and how she just really was just savoring her world, where she would jump out, she'd bark at the dog, she would get the paper, she'd bring it back in, she'd lay on the floor, she'd eat her little donut. And this one just like rush, get it done. And we jump into, and initially I thought, oh, this is going to be kind of cool because they're not talking. So how are they going to be able to do this from a perspective of everything that happens in Lady the Tramp, but they're going to have to do more character animation like Wallace and Gromit with Gromit, where, the facial expressions and just the situation is going to have to tell the story. Or even like in Flow, which did this perfectly well with no speaking. So I thought, wow, this is cool. Like, I'm going to love this. And then she goes outside and she meets Jacqueline and Trusty.
Jacqueline.
Was that her name? Her name was
Jacqueline. Yeah.
Jacqueline. Yes, the Scottish version. And then they start talking, and then I start seeing the CGI talking of the dogs. I'm like,
it was not good. Oh, yeah. And that was one of the sad things, because as I had listened to the interview with him, it's like that was one of the main things that they were talking about, how it was different with the Lion King, because the Lion King, most of the animals aren't domesticated as a dog is. And you look at a dog, and a dog actually has quite a bit of emotion and emoting in their face and how they act and react, but it's not nearly as much with them. And so he was just like, I just feel like it wasn't fair, because you're trying to make it look real, and that it just would have made it look not real. And I'm like, it's supposed to be an animated movie. That's what you're going with. That's not real. But anyway, the point is like they took real dogs, and they had real dogs on set for this, but they then superimposed this face on them, which I did not like. I just didn't like it at all.
It didn't work.
I don't like it.
Because the dogs were moving around in certain scenes, And for example, there's one scene where we get the backstory of Tramp. Totally unnecessary.
Mm-hmm.
And the family abandons him, and the dog is running there, stops, looks up, licks his face because he's a dog, and then kind of like stares at the camera. And I think they were like, oh, that's great. Let's keep that in because that's like what dogs do, and that's what the dog did. But based on the severity and the intensity of the moment, like, why would you like it just it didn't anytime the dogs talked, it just was major Uncanny Valley. I mean, is there really a version of a dog talking that isn't the Uncanny Valley? But dogs don't talk. But
I mean, even Babe had like animatronic type things, but it still looked better.
It did, yeah. Such a shame because he really was doing everything that he could to make this work and to do the best job that he could with it. But that a hard pass on the CGI talking animated dogs. It immediately took me out of the moment. Anytime they were talking, I was like, ugh. I had a hard time, like, am I looking at a real dog? Is the whole thing fake? Like, I was just immediately focusing on the dog and, like, the mechanics behind it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I was... same thing.
Yeah. And the yada yada everything about like, the first half of the movie and the pregnancy is announced, like, very early on. It's like, okay, she's pregnant. Where before, that's something that the lady has to figure out. And all the introspection of a dog's life and just seeing the world through a dog's lens is not there. One of the most iconic things from the original film is that it's shot low at a dog's perspective. And the majority of the time, you never see the faces of anybody, of the humans. You know, Mr. Darling, they don't show it from her perspective as in, let's have her look up and we'll see the humans like from 1 foot from the ground where a dog would see you. But it's like, instead of the camera being at this position, facing horizontally out, we're going to drop it down and shoot it where the dog is the star. And you know, if you're cut out of scene because you're too tall and you're a human, too bad. You know, and so that was a really unique thing that we see, and we get to get close into the ground and the dirt and the bushes, and you know, we see, and that introspection of Lady just being a dog and figuring out a dog's world and learning and adapting to what's happening with the baby. You know, she's like figuring out what is the baby, you know, and finally when the baby comes, you know, what is a baby? Do 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 do. Whatever that song is, that one's not in here.
Yeah,
and I missed that a lot because it was like, nope, yeah, that's not really important. Let's just like get to this part.
Well, and I think it was, I don't know, the human characters also took me out of the story because there were a lot of things that I felt disingenuous, as well as just like didn't make any sense story-wise. Like, for example, the didn't make any sense story-wise was the fact that you have Aunt Sarah coming in and saying, here, I'm going to buy this very priceless vase for you because your husband obviously wouldn't be able to afford it because of his job. And then Darling's like, you mean as a musician? And it was just like, what? Not once throughout the entire movie does Jim Deere do anything musical whatsoever. And the entire time, if there is any music playing, it's Darling singing. And so it's just like, okay, you're going to throw that out there just to like emasculate him? I don't understand. And then that was the other part that I felt was disingenuous is, okay, they're moving everything down into Georgia. And I think the criticism of the Jim Crow South is fair if you're trying to make this something. But it's like, okay, if that's what you're trying to do, then make it an all-black cast and make Jim Deere black. But no, you don't want to, because what? You don't like black men? Okay, you're going to put a white man in there. But the white man he must be a bumbling fool. And therefore, I don't think it's even just white men or black men that you don't like. I just think you don't like men. And there were multiple points in here where it really it kind of hammered in, and like once you see it, you can't unsee it. Like there's several moments where it just like, let's just cut at Jim Deere a little bit. Let's just take him down a peg. It's like Jim Deere wasn't even like a part of the story.
Him.
Like the original movie, it was about Lady and the Tramp. It was about the dogs, and you never saw the faces. They were just kind of auxiliary to them, even though it was her world, but it wasn't part of the story other than, picking her up,
Well, yeah, they did have very traditional roles, and we saw him leaving and coming to work.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we see him do that once.
No,
and
because he's a musician.
Awesome. And then like you said, there's the moment where she's singing La La Lou, or maybe you didn't say this, La La Lou, and that's like the moment where you sing lullabies to babies. For those who don't have babies or have ever had kids, like you sing lullabies to babies when they're fussing and you want to get them to bed, or just like you're putting him down, and he's sitting there in the rocking chair watching her do this work, which is obviously the mom's work. Not say that men can't, but typically,
well, I mean,
do it.
The baby also the reason why is there is a physiological connection to the mother's voice.
Right.
And so,
especially, and if you're breastfeeding, like that closeness there is like you're going to be feeding the baby, you're going to be singing to the baby, and you're going to be putting the baby down. And he's just sitting there like watching this show. Not that she's breastfeeding, but she's just,
right.
I just thought it was a very weird moment. I'm like, anyone who's had kids, even if it's just one, like if someone's putting the baby down, like you do everything in your power to get out of there. You do not want another person chilling, check it out, watching the baby go to bed. Like you go and you be productive. You go do the dishes or you do something, because this is a moment where someone's taking care of the baby and you can do something else. It was just really fun. I'm like, I don't know. Was the baby? Is this like the moment the baby was like just born, and it's like everyone's all Google eyes over the baby? Like, okay, then I guess I would give it a pass. But
yeah, that's the only thought that I had is like it must have been this very early on within first days, also first child. So everybody's Google eyes.
But something that they don't have, which is a moment I always loved in the original, is the baby shower scene. And it shows the dichotomy between the men and the women.
No,
and
it did have this.
They did?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That was
where they have the men in the one room and the women in the other?
Yeah, all the men were upstairs. And they were just like, oh, yeah, there's going to be screaming and there's all these things. And then the kid will make noise, too. And it was just like, okay. But it was, so they had all the men upstairs doing their thing and all the women downstairs. So they did.
I like that. I've always liked that in the original. I thought it was cool to see the differences, the men smoking the cigars and the women, just chatting about what's coming. And they were both there at this, most baby showers, it's just a women's affair. But I like seeing back there, I was like, oh, it was a big party for everyone.
I did like that. I wish that was something more of what would happen today, only just because it's like, oh, that's fun. At least everybody's joining in together. And that does seem like everybody has more of a well of friends and like other people to rely on. I feel like it would build more of a community as opposed to just her friend's friend. I don't know. I feel like if this were done more today, where both go and then hang out in their respective areas, then it would create more of a support system for both sides. But anyway.
So then we get Tramp. And we're introduced to him. Life as a tramp, vagabond, just doesn't have a home. He goes from place to place. He gets the bones from, he gets his breakfast here. It's like, where do I want to have breakfast? But did they say that in this one? But that's very much a moment I remember from the original. But I didn't really feel anything for Tramp in this one. I don't know if I didn't connect with the voice actor or just how he was portrayed, meaning like the scenes that they put him in. But it just was kind of like, eh. And then he eventually meets Lady.
The dog wasn't very cute. I'll just be honest.
No, he was definitely I think he was a schnauzer mix, but like a taller sort of schnauzer. And he just didn't have the
personality
charm of the design of the original Tramp, which, was a shame. He was like really, ragged looking.
Right.
And so he meets Lady and he says this line like right before he leaves, and it's the classic line, when the baby moves in, the dog moves out. And he has this charm, this suave, that he's just, I know street stars. I know exactly how this girl goes, little lady. And he just tromps away in the original. And this one, they add the line. I'm stealing this, by the way. I just thought, this is so dumb. Like, we understand. He's a tramp. He's going to steal things. And it just, I don't know. It was unnecessary. Just have him take the bone and walk away and have them do nothing. The high class folks can't do anything about it. They're going to stand there slack-jawed.
Right.
That would have, because they're just shocked that someone would steal something from them, right? That's
Right.
one thing about this movie is there's definitely a classism that's explored in the original, and I didn't feel that at all here. I don't feel like the class between the tramp and her was, there's no moments where they're trying to talk Lady out of it, like when she falls in love with him, and like her friends, me and Jock and Trusty, are like, oh, like, don't, stay away, you're too good for him. If you like this life, you really shouldn't go down that path. I feel like the classism was very much erased as far as like the dogs.
I mean, it was talked about as far as like, oh, you're a street dog as opposed to being a house dog. And, and it was just, it wasn't explored like you were saying, but it was said. So I just think it wasn't done well enough to mimic the original.
Yeah, and romance films that have classism can be, books as well, can be classics. There's Romeo and Juliet, which is one of the greatest ones. There's Titanic. I think of Aladdin a little bit. Obviously, Lady and the Tramp. And yeah, I think this would be one of the top ones when you're thinking of a movie that explores romance as far as different classes of people or creatures in this case. This would be one of the top ones, meaning the original.
Yeah, this is the first time that she is exploring this and she's talking about it. And then, it's just the first
because everything goes so fast, we don't really get to feel like the moment where she gets the license. That's a big moment because she's finally reached this certain age and milestone, and she gets to show that I am a registered dog of the city, and I get to wear my shiny new collar shiny new tag on my collar. It's a big, big, big deal. And they just like, hey, you got your license, and they go off to the next thing. So they kind of just yada over a lot of the points that we maybe would have spent 5 minutes on in the original.
Well, and I think it's less that we would have spent more time on it. I just think that the dialogue was written in a very different way in that movie, where it wasn't as much. And in this one, it was almost more sitcom-y, and they were trying to make it fit with the speaking beats of what a sitcom would be. And so it would be much quicker, and you're adding a little bit more in there and a lot more talking as opposed to how it was approached in the original. But yeah, and then,
the baby's here.
Baby's here.
The baby's coming. It's a bouncing da-na-na-na baby. Ah! Speaking of Wicked.
Yes.
Oh, so then very quickly they move on to Aunt Sarah, who they're going on a trip, and Aunt Sarah comes to watch the baby. But then they kind of have to do this like weird tricking of Aunt Sarah to get her to watch Lady. It's like she doesn't know that Lady's there. Like, you're going to watch the baby, and then she's surprised to find out that they get to watch Lady too. You catch that?
Yeah. Well, and in the original, they didn't do that. Like, she was there
she was
to watch
very
the
much
movie.
aware. Like, there's this dog, and I don't care. I'm going to ignore this dog, and
I'm going to be with the baby.
Yes. It's going to be 100% baby. Obviously, a human would do that. She's obviously a little bit more on the villainous side and like treating the dog incredibly poorly. And, I can understand non-dog people having zero tolerance for dogs. There are people that start out as like very much dog parents, and then they have their own kid, and you're like, oh, yeah, this is the priority. And the dog really falls to the, number 2 on the pecking order. And that's what this movie is teaching you. And so, then especially if it's not your dog, and you didn't love dogs in the first place, you couldn't care less. And so I feel like that's Aunt Sarah in the first movie. Like, this thing, go outside into your doghouse and I won't see you for the next week. And they bring in the Siamese cats in the original, and this one they change them. I'm not sure what type of cats they changed them to, but
leopardy.
Yeah, they definitely had to get rid of those guys. Can't have, the depiction of Siamese singing, which was Brenda. Was it Brenda Lee in the original, or Peggy Lee?
Peggy Lee.
Peggy Lee did many of the songs from the soundtrack. She wrote the main title, which is the Bella Notte Peace on Earth. She and Sonny Burke wrote La La Lu. They also wrote Bella Notte. They wrote He's a Tramp. And then, those were the main songs that they wrote from the original, which was pretty cool. I didn't really consciously know that she was one of the songwriters for this, but Yeah, we can't have that. So instead we have just like a nothing burger of a song that they replace instead, which is called What a Shame. And it's performed by Wonder and Gian Arthur. It's a replacement, and just like in the original, the cats are here and they're there and we never see them again. And that's a disappointment in the original. That's like there should have been maybe more tension there, or they should have had more of a role than let's sing one song, create some problems for Lady, and then we're away.
Right.
But they don't explore that further or make their characters richer.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, we're gonna swap out the Siamese cat. Like, still could have been a Siamese cat. You could have changed the voices. But nope. Like, this is Disney. We have to pretend all of this isn't a thing.
Right.
And so they do.
Let's change history. Let's let's fix the things that people have criticized us for. So we're not doing that again.
Well, which in 2025 they now have finally the Reimagining Tomorrow program, which wasn't initiated until 2021. It was this like big program, like, we're going to go back through all of our history and all of our parks and any of our products and anything that's problematic. We are going to take care of it. We're either going to erase it, we're going to get rid of it, we're going to change it. And so that's why on Disney Plus you had these obnoxious trigger warnings, or like warnings saying, "Hey, this shows depictions in an unflattering light of people and blah blah." They were all different. It was on before Aladdin. It was before Pinocchio, or not Pinocchio. It was before maybe it was Pinocchio, but Peter Pan. It was. And this one for sure. Jungle, or I think Aristocats had one, because of the Siamese playing cat.
Mm-hmm.
And now they've said, okay, we're getting rid of those. Now it's just going to be a little, in the description section, we're going to have like a little one-line thing just saying like, hey, this is shows different depictions that were blah, blah, blah. Which, fine. I would rather them just get rid of it entirely and let me decide.
Yeah.
But I appreciate that they got rid of that because it was so annoying. You couldn't fast forward over it. You couldn't autoplay it. It's like, okay, I have to sit here for 15 seconds, and I have a toddler be like, "Wait, movie, Pooh Bear." Not that Pooh Bear was ever problematic, never Pooh. But like, okay, hold on, I'm trying. Like these kids that are used to instantaneous, they don't understand the problems that we had with the DVD screens.
Or even the VHS.
VHS had the ability that you could just hit fast forward and boom, and you'd have to wait. But some of the DVDs and Blu-rays had these like sneaky functions where you tried to hit menu and it'd be like, cannot do this function. And you're like, okay, well, maybe it's top menu. And you push top menu. Oh, not that function. You're like, what is the button that's going to bypass this? Eventually you find it, but yes.
Here's the thing. I don't think that it's a terrible thing to have a acknowledgement of like, hey, a lot of these were written under different pretenses and it's like, yeah, I don't actually have a problem with that, like with the acknowledgement of it. How you put it in, yeah, it gets annoying. Like, okay, yeah, I get it, but I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that as a society, it's like, yeah, you should be aware of specifically, you can also see different reasons why at different times when, for example, a country was at war with another country, the people from one country would always be depicted as the villain, and so it's just like, I can see how a lot of that can be propaganda, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know, when you care about one thing, but you don't care about another thing, and it just feels disingenuous. So that's where I'm getting off.
Yeah. I'm on the fan of, or I'm on the fan, whatever that means. I'm on the side of, yes, there are things that are problematic, but if you start going down this route, you have to start putting it on everything. You're going to put it on before every single book, every single movie, and it just becomes so much that it gets out of control. So just get rid of it all and trust people that they're going to be able to, have parents that teach them, or they're going to do research, or just society in general is going to have them watch this movie and they're going to say, oh, that's kind of weird, and make their decisions from there. So that's where I stand on it, because one of the worst offenders of this was, I was watching on HBO, or it was, HBO Max. What they changed the name. Now it's just called Max. And I was watching Gone with the Wind. And there was a 10-minute thing of someone that was that lecturing me on Gone with the Wind and the history. And I'm like, what is this crap? Just let me see crappy Scarlet and all of her bad decisions. I don't want this. And so that was really frustrating to me. And oh, well. Anyways, so let's go back to this. And
a re-education moment for you. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like this is like they get to this point. So Jim Deere and Darling have left, and the cats have destroyed everything. And now Sarah is obviously, it's not her babies. Of course, her babies wouldn't be the ones to be at fault.
Yes, one of the most interesting characters was Aunt Sarah. I thought Aunt Sarah was really funny when she first walks in and she puts on the phonogram and she starts singing terribly. And I thought that was a really funny moment. And I was like, oh, I like this Aunt Sarah. I really like the Aunt Sarah from the other one, but I liked what they were doing with this Aunt Sarah. And then she's like, done.
Yeah.
Very quickly.
And also after the whole thing, like we're just going to be bouncing around because it's connections. But after the whole, where she takes Lady and Lady leaves, and now she's Jim Deere and Darling have come back and they've completely shut this woman out of their life. And it's like, that just seems really extreme for the moment. I mean, I get it. I would be upset as well, but like slamming the door in her face, it was just like, strong boundaries. Okay.
Yeah. They took different deviations with the script on this one that made me kind of tilt my head and go, okay. A lot of it was with, like you said, the empowering of Mrs. Darling over Jim Deere. Mm-hmm. That was notable. And then how they treated Aunt Sarah. Like in the original, I mean, she was terrible to Lady, but they never kick her out per se for what happens. But yeah. And one thing I noticed when Aunt Sarah takes Lady to pet shop to get the muzzle, this guy
a muzzle. It's wrong.
Yes.
That's all I think of the original Aunt Sarah.
Oh, that's such a great quote. Clearly this guy had no experience muzzling bad dogs, because the way he does it is just, if you knew that this dog potentially had bitten a child or had the ability to, the way that you put the muzzle on, you would be holding the snout of the dog and you'd be putting it on. And obviously Lady gets away after this. And I was just like, no, this must be first day on the job, because he's not buying it.
He was trying to give her a squeaker toy. Like, he knew that.
I was like, did you not think that I thought they had those back then? So then she meets Tramp, and for me, there's nothing appealing, suave, or charming about him in the least.
They go on this like epic date,
and no beavers.
Yes, no beaver. That was something that I clearly missed, because I would and I they don't want to have to get a beaver in and have to deal with the beaver.
Come on, someone has a trained beaver somewhere.
And everything. I get that. Okay. But it works well. Character. Oh man. Yeah, I just they go on this epic day-long marathon date, and honestly, he didn't even win me over with that. Like they kept like laughing and bantering back and forth, but there wasn't ever like a suave moment where I liked him.
Yeah. Where I'm like, ooh, I could see this.
Like I like him for you, but in this case, it was just kind of fun little banter that wasn't really like a romantic or anything. But I don't know. How
did you feel about the Bella Notte scene? The spaghetti, the classic.
I do think it was kind of weird.
I think AFI listed it the original, like one of the most romantic scenes in all of cinema. With the nose of the meatball, and the Eddie, and the song.
It's very memorable. This one I thought was just weird, just because it was like in the cartoon, in the animated version, you're already like suspending belief that everything is happening. And so the fact that Tony comes out and he's talking to me. Okay, he's talking to me. But like in this one, it's like you had a Mexican guy at the stove and an Italian guy who was the top, which I guess is, probably more true to form, like in some areas. I don't know.
In the 1920s? 1920s?
Not in the 1920s per se, but like it was clearly Spanish that guy was
2020, sure. Yeah.
not Italian.
Yeah.
And so it was just like, what? But they kept saying, "Oh, we're packed. We're packed. Come on now." But they were going to stop just for these dogs. Like that was weird. They should have said, "It's a slow night." Yeah, sure.
Yes. Yeah, let's get my accordion out, my guitar.
Right.
Yeah,
If it's a slow night, I totally understand why you're just like, whatever. But the fact that they made it be like, "Oh, we're packed inside. Don't come today." It was like, that's not going to be a thing.
Yeah, the romance wasn't quite there for me. I didn't like fall in love with this scene. But I really liked the guys that they had play Tony.
Yeah.
Is it Luigi, the other guy? But I liked them. I thought they were great. And then we get Trump's backstory. And this is a classic thing a trope that they do in these live action remakes. It's like, okay, we need to either there's criticism of the original, and so they want to get ahead of that. And we see a lot of that in The Beauty and the Beast.
Yes.
Where it's like, we need to know more about this character. Why is the character the way that he is? So we have the Beast backstory and the song. And this one, it's, okay, well, we need to know why he's a tramp and why he acts the way he does, even though, I don't feel that he's acting any certain way. That but he has this line, "I had a home, I had it all, and I loved them. And then one day, something changed," and it shows just like the family abandoning him. Like,
which is really sad, like really, really sad. But at the same time, I don't think that you really needed that. I think all you had to do was, oh, you do know how it feels, and then just leave it. And then your imagination is like, oh, okay. But the fact that
did he need to have a home? Because in the original, it's implied he never.
I don't think so. I don't think he needed to have.
So he was just a totally other world, other class,
right?
Because he was a street dog from the beginning. And this one, it was like, no, I used to be like you. Like, oh, okay. So now maybe this will be a little bit more societally acceptable,
right? Exactly. Yeah, no, I don't think so.
The dog catcher. They really amped up the dog catcher in this. And initially, at first glance, I was like, wait, is this Jack Black? I thought that Nacho Libre was making a return. But nope, it was someone named Adrian Martinez. I looked him up, and he seems to have done a lot of Spanish language stuff. And he was funny. I liked him, and I thought he was pretty good, but very, very over the top, and give him a bigger role than obviously in the original. The original is kind of this faceless dog catcher who's just him alone, just seeing his uniform and the cart that he drives around in the net. Like, that's enough to instill fear in the dogs.
Right.
Now we have to have like the goofy guy.
Yeah. And can I just say that was the most diverse dog pound I have ever seen. And I have gone to the dog pound, multiple dog pounds within my area, multiple times over my lifetime. And I have gotten multiple dogs from the pound. And like, they're never full of every type of dog, one of each kind. Like you had a Saint Bernard in there, you've got a German Shepherd, you've got all these things. It's like, man, so much choice.
Dogs that are so rare nowadays. Like, when's the last time you saw Saint Bernard in the wild?
Right.
Or like in the original, it's like the Afghan. I think that the Afghan, the big tall one who's kind of looking guard, and then they have the Chihuahua digging, or no, the Dachshund that's digging the holes. So. Well, and typically now you got like either pit bull or pit bull mix. Probably like 80% of what you find in there.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Like, when I got my dog, the main reason why I got her was, what I was looking for specifically was short hair, because my previous dog had long hair, and it was like every time summertime hit, you could pack a pillow with how much hair that dog shed. And I was just like, I can't do it again. I just can't. So I went with the short hair dog. But it was like, even just finding her, that like everything that was in there was a pit bull mix. And I have nothing against pit bulls. Like, personally, I feel like I bought my dog because she was my dog. But yeah, it's very rare to have that much assortment.
Yeah. And this is why I say I only ever will have a non-shedding dog.
Yeah.
And or that's why the Oodle is something that I will typically always do unless it's some other sort of breed that doesn't shed. But yeah, you always got to get the oodle in there because yeah, I can't do the hair around. I
It's
barely
a
am keeping
lot.
up on life. And so
I
having to
know.
keep up on dog hair,
I know.
I can't do it. So bless you, Chelsea.
I
Bless
know.
you.
Well, she does shed, but it's like it's short. It's like she's a German short hair pointer, and so it is very short. So it's like eyelashes
Yeah,
when
yeah,
they're there. So it's not nearly as bad as it would be if it were white long hair, And
yeah.
it's just like I have a hard time with it, but yeah, it is still something you have to keep up with.
So, then we have this back to the family section.
It was weird. I thought that was like the editing of that moment was weird. It was just like, okay, now it was hard to tell, was this supposed to be a long period of time? Because
Uh-huh,
there were
uh-huh.
multiple activities that happened within a very short period of I mean, it just seemed like this should have been a tell that this, months later.
Mm-hmm.
But then literally she goes outside and Jacques and Trusty are like, oh, welcome back from the pound. So
Yeah.
like the editing of it just didn't make sense.
Yeah, and this is the moment where it really they do a bigger deviation from the original where they're back. Whereas in the original, the rat scene happens while Aunt Sarah is there, which is
Right.
kind of scary as a parent for something like that to happen to your child while they're, under the care of
My
the sitter and
baby.
yeah. And so then it's just like everything's great. I'm part of the family and so then we're having, to have this plot line of Tramp coming back to say sorry. It just kind of feels a little contrived, I guess. I mean, she's already
Mhm.
back. She's free. Back with the
Mhm.
darlings. There's not any conflict. There's nothing that he owes her or she owes him.
Mhm.
Whereas before it's, oh, I'm sorry, and
She's
then
on a
they,
chain in the backyard
yeah,
and
and she's able to see, yes, exactly. Like there's consequences for what happened, and he's able, because she's chained down, able to jump on in and save the day. And this one,
mhm.
they're like, nah, it just it didn't have the stakes. That's the thing. All the things
Yeah.
that had like there were high stakes, they just we don't need that, and they dropped it. Jumping ahead with Trusty and the sense of smell, they mention it. Oh, great, that's cool. But in the original, there's so much time and shock and
He
discourse
lost
about
his sense of smell.
he doesn't have. Yes, yes.
Mhm.
For a dog, like this is like a shocking thing, and they're keeping the secret from him, and it has the payoff at the end when he's able to he's trying to track the way and they're like, oh no, this isn't, but then he does, and then he sacrifices himself, and it's really sad, right? And we don't have that for this big scene. It's Lady Jock isn't even there, he's not breaking his leg. Even then, fine, that's fine if you don't want Jock to do it, or not Jock, I keep saying Jock, it's Trusty. Okay,
Mhm.
that's fine. It's like Tramp's gonna get hurt, and he get like marginally hurt. He fell out of the dog carriage, but he didn't sacrifice himself to get hurt. And it was like, okay, this isn't as iconic as the first. And that's the problem when you're making these films. Like I hate that. Like I'm analyzing this movie and I keep referencing the original, but this is derivative. It's a derivative piece of film, and so I obviously am going to be referencing that in my mind. And how are
Mhm.
you going to build upon this? How are you going to change it? And a majority of the changes, it's just they were diminished, they were thrown away, so it doesn't have the same impact.
Yeah. And then the fact that okay, they get the Tramp, he puts him in the cart and they're going off with the horses and then Trusty goes after, but Trusty he loses his guts, he loses his gusto and doesn't believe in himself, and it takes Jacqueline to come in and say, no, you can do this, Jacques. Like it was
Yeah,
just so much. Once again, once you see it, you can't unsee it, of
yeah,
like
yeah,
dumbing down men and males in all of these things. And then there's the moment where you had the actual dog catcher like barges into their house and
yeah.
Jim Deere just kind of like, oh, okay. And then he's walking behind him and Darling like slaps him on the ear and he's like, ow, like these are moments that you would, I guess these were tropes during like the 90s, and it just became a thing where it's so ingrained into people's minds of like treat the men like they're dumb kind of thing. And it's just, it rubs me the wrong way. I don't like it.
In the dog catcher scene at the very end, the mom they have the baby with them on this like grand chase, and she hands the baby off to the husband, and she gives this inspirational speech, and he's just sitting with the baby. It's like girl power.
Yes.
And I'm like, ugh.
And
what?
And
I'm like, why is this about you?
Barks and stops the horses, and it's just like, why are we doing this?
I'm like, there were no moments where like this is a moment for Lady where she would have to. I guess she feels bad, and so that's why she's willing to sacrifice it. But
that's the thing is like they want to make Lady the girl boss in this, and Trusty can't save the day. No, a lady has to save the day. It's like, what?
Yeah,
like it's a bloodhound. That's what he does. Like, I don't know.
I don't know. I feel like if there would fine, you want to do that. There maybe should have been a moment where like all the dogs were running and Lady is the slowest of them because she's like small or whatever. And then it was like she's never going to win these sorts of races, but then because of the love that she has for Tramp, maybe it was able to she could overpower the other dogs.
She takes a shortcut because she learned from Tramp. Yes, being on the streets, like that's the kind of thing you would want to see. Not that
uses the street smarts. Yes.
Like that's something that she could actually do, as opposed to like I had a burst of adrenaline. Yeah. You can Google it. like no,
called an adrenaline rush. Google it.
Yeah, so there's all these moments where it's like this whole thing does not make sense, and then no, we actually own the dog. The dog has a home. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the dog has a home with us. I'm just like, okay,
sure.
All right.
Yeah, that's the end of it. Yeah.
And then they go home and she once again, she's the one that starts singing again. There were so many parts of this movie that just you put in that just didn't make sense, and it didn't add, and it just made me scratch my head. So
speaking of things they didn't add, that they took away, was no puppies at the end.
They're not their puppies. They are the pound puppies that get adopted by Jacqueline's mom.
Yes, but that's like the neighbor. I don't care that they're dogs.
Right. Well, we have to control the pet population. We can't have mangy half-breeds here, Morgan.
Get your pet spayed and neutered.
Yeah. So it's...
Thank you, Bob.
There's just a lot of these things that they are neutering the film. They're trying to make it, that so nobody can judge it at all. And here, because of that, all I can do is judge it. Like, yeah. So that's
my
what you get.
My last thing, as they're doing yet another drone shot away from the Darling family, she's singing, she's rocking the baby while singing. The baby's not even crying. The baby just like appears to be chilling there. And I don't know if you noticed this, but she is rocking like she is on a boat, side to side, like she's doing some sort of hip hop dance. She is rocking that baby. And I'm like, whoa, there is no need when you're sitting in a chair to be like rocking where you're going from one side of the couch to the other. You should go back and watch it because it was really odd. As someone who has rocked babies, I'm like, what's going on here? Baby's not gonna like that much rocking. It was just like very clear, like either this was a doll or she never really rocked a lot of babies, or some direction that she was given, like give it a good old rocking. Gonna rock around the crib tonight.
Oh man.
And another thing I missed, the Disney chorus. Yeah. I love myself a good old fashioned Disney chorus. I needed it so bad to end this up. But no, they really wanted this Miss Darling to sing, and she's fine, but wah wah. I miss it.
Wah, wah. Apparently, all of the singing was live.
Uh-huh.
So that was okay. At least
like
there's
live
that.
On set or live. Yeah, okay. Which is like so it's the thing to do now, which I didn't enjoy it at all in Beauty and the Beast. Distracting. One of my favorite videos is all about why the singing in Beauty and the Beast, the remake, does not work. I'll include it by good old Sideways, who stopped doing videos because of all the copyright strikes and users on the internet. Like, people were taking his videos and just recreating them basically
bummer.
word for word, and he kind of got frustrated with it all. And like, I get it, but I love that video. I send it to everyone. Like, anytime, like, generally anything comes up about singing in live action remakes, I'm like, you need to watch this video. You need to be informed.
Right. Well, and it's also like the guy Wings of Pegasus, where he goes through and he shows how much all of the songs everywhere are being auto-tuned.
Yes.
And
or pitch
he'll
corrected.
Right. Both. And so he does a really good job of like having different graphs that you can see all of the sound waves, not just sound waves, but the actual tones being mapped out, and to show you like how flat they are. And I'm watching this as an audio engineer who has used pitch correction in many things. Like, it's just like, yeah, you don't ever do it like that. It's
Right.
like, oh man.
Yeah, they snap a note to the line where it's just like perfectly held to the line for a second or however long the song is, or even just like a millisecond. And then you flip to someone singing naturally. They'll go to Julie Andrews is a great one. I love that video of his. I'll include a link to that as well. But where there's natural variations on when you're holding a note. Maybe you start a little bit sharp and then you hit the note. Or maybe if you're a Julie Andrews, you're on the note, but there is a little bit of wave, as you're doing a little vibrato, or you're a little up, you're a little down, where that's what makes us human, is this ability to become as close to perfection as possible while not quite being perfect. But now everyone is doing it, so everyone is just doing it because that's what their competitors are doing it. That's what the industry standard is. It's frustrating because once you hear the auto-tune sound, and it's just subtle. It's so subtle. You hear it everywhere.
Yes.
You're like, I'm going crazy right now.
Yes.
Indeed. All right. So, any last thoughts? Things that you were thinking about as you were watching this?
I would like to talk to a director like Charlie Bean, and I would not be talking about all of the animation. Do you hear my dog?
I did. I was wondering. I'm like, what's this bubble popping noise in the background?
She's screaming, like chasing something, and so she's got this sound.
I see.
Here, let me.
She's chasing something. What movie is that where they're dreaming? Oh, it's Lady of the Tramp, where the dog, where Trusty is dreaming about his old hound dog day.
Exactly.
That's exactly what she's doing.
Yeah, she's absolutely chasing. Hey, baby. Here, sorry, I'm gonna have to wake you up. And she's still fast asleep. Okay. Well, yeah, I think the thing that I would like to ask a director like Charlie Bean is nothing about animation, nothing about like even the actual directing of it, but it's like when you come across these tropes that are just like so irksome, I find, like, why do you keep them? Like, why do you promote them and continue them? So that's the one that I would like to know. Like, the whole, you can just tell that every little thing is, bumbling idiot men. And I'm just like, why are we doing that? Like, you're a guy. Why are you doing that?
Yeah.
That's something I don't understand. And I would like there to be some discussion on this. Like, are we just following this because it is
I think it's just a trend. I think it's a trend in film.
You think that it'll be funny because somebody else has done it and it seemed kind of funny. It's a Simpsons, Homer Simpson kind of thing. Make the guy be an idiot. I don't know. So that's a thought. But other than that, yeah, that's the only extra thought that I would add.
All right. So, what would you rate this film?
I'd say 3 stars out of 5. I mean, I didn't feel like it was particularly terrible. There were a lot of things that I didn't enjoy, like the animation on the dogs itself. I didn't feel like it was at all what the original was, and had not even the slightest comparison as far as like charm goes. Yes, you could say that is a lot of nostalgia goggles, but I think also just it's just easier to believe. So I liked the original so much better, but this one on its own, just as I sit and watch, it wasn't bad, and it wasn't something that was particularly something I think that anybody other than yourself and I and other people who would be into these things would notice all of these things. They would just accept it as it is and be like, well, that was fine, and then move on with their life.
I'm going to give it 2.5 stars. For me, it just kind of felt, which many of these live action remakes feel like to me, they're just putting on the skin of the original film and putting it over a live action film and seeing, wearing it around, thinking we won't notice or that it's going to be close enough, but it's very scary looking and not normal.
Right.
And there's like moments where it's like, oh, okay, they're trying to do this, they're trying to do that, but the CGI dogs, not so good. The story, I felt it was too fast. All of those really intimate moments of seeing Lady in her dog world and finding her place in this posh dog world as being one of the dogs that has an owner and like upper class, if you will. And then contrasting that with Tramp and what he has to go through and how he survives. And the clash of both of them meeting together and falling in love. That just felt so rushed to me. And I didn't like Tramp. I didn't relate to him. I didn't think anything cool about him. That Lady, she seemed very indifferent to him for the majority of it until it was like, oh yeah, they're supposed to be in love now. And that's kind of how I felt, about this. It's just kind of indifference. It was something to watch. And I'm glad that I watched it just so I could have a more informed view, but it was really what I was expecting. Nothing great. I think if they really would have pushed it with either two ways they could have done this, either no dialogue and force themselves as storytellers to how can we change this and share what we need to share without dialogue. It can be done. Or just do the Homeward Bound thing where it's just the voiceover of the dog and the person. And you don't have to mess with any sort of Uncanny Valley CGI talking dogs. Okay? No snow buddies here. So that's what I have. Let us know your thoughts about this film at rotoscopers.com/334. I really loved last episode. We were on the 333. It was just like a fun number episode just to do a voicemail bag. But let us know your thoughts. We will, we'll round these all up and do another voicemail bag sometime. So send them in anytime, any thoughts, anywhere, anything. Just let us know. Go to rotoscopers.com/voicemails or give us a call 406-646-6575 or just send us an email at contact@rotoscopers.com with your voice note. We love all of them. And then, like we said in our last episode, you can also send us an email. If you don't want the voicemail, that's cool. We can read it for you, and we appreciate it. Let us know your thoughts. And our next episode in this fun little Disney Plus series that we will be doing is going to be Peter Pan and Wendy. Ooh.
Yes.
Yes. It's going to be a good one. I'm actually interested in that one because that's that one will be interesting to see. There's been so many versions of Peter Pan. I grew up on the Mary Martin version, which is basically the stage play filmed, and obviously regular Peter Pan. And then I've seen the different versions of it. And there's Hook. Oh, there's so much that we're going to be able to talk about. And maybe we can rank the different versions of Peter Pan that we've seen at the end. And let us know your thoughts. If you want to send us a voicemail about Peter Pan and Wendy, be sure
which one is your favorite?
Yes, and let us know which one is your favorite. We can talk all about those. I think that'll be a really, really fun episode. And then if you have suggestions for what we should do on our future Disney Plus episodes, Chelsea has that taken care of.
Yeah. If you if you join the newsletter, I send out a link that you are able to vote and help create. This is also where a link will be held that you can go in and help provide your input is if you want to help us plan for any of our ranking videos as well. So make sure to join the newsletter, rotoscopers.com/newsletter, and you will be able to get signed up for all of that.
All right. Thanks so much for joining us. I am a lady. Chelsea is a lady. Or are we Tramp? Who knows? Until next time, we are the Rotoscopers. It's says it's fine or it's recording?
The sound waves are pumping, so...
Okay.
And it says...
The jam has been pumped.
The jam has been pumped, and the input is the correct input, so I think we'll be okay.
Okay, 1 second. I'm going to grab my water.
Okay, this is a very side note, and I'll move this to the bloopers, but in the inauguration, there was a moment where Carrie Underwood, she was the one singing God Bless America. Something happened, and the sound person did not have a backup plan. And like it was supposed to have, she did it a cappella, but it was supposed to have some kind of a background noise or background audio that played with it. But also, like, you had a live band there as well. So it's like you didn't even have, there was no connection as far as like backup plans. But she, as a professional singer should do, had her own plan of, okay, I'll just sing a cappella, and just sang it a cappella, did very well. But I kept seeing around all of these YouTube like thumbnails being like, it was a miracle that she was able to do this. And I'm like, no, this was, how horrible that our society has like fallen. If doing your job is a miracle. No, she is a singer. That's what you do. You need to be able to sing a cappella. You need to. And I'm just like, this, of all of the things that made me upset, that was the thing that made me most upset on the whole coverage of the whole event. I was like, no.
Yeah.
She was, that of all things needs to work.
You've been listening to the Animation Addicts podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and be sure to leave us a 5-star review. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you want to help spread the word, be sure to share the podcast with your friends on social media. Just don't forget to tag us at Rotoscopers on Instagram and use the hashtag AnimationAddicts. For all the links and full show notes for this episode, go to rotoscopers.com/podcast. Now, if you still can't get enough for your animation fix, be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube and visit rotoscopers.com for more animation news, reviews, and interviews. Thanks for listening.